welcome back to the Hawkins Do Copy podcast. My name is Ren.
And my name is Emily. And in this podcast, we talk about all things Stranger Things.
And because not only do we talk about all things Stranger Things, we're incredibly extra when talking about all things Stranger Things. We're essentially taking an idea that we had in one part of last week's episode and making it into an entire episode.
Basically, after last week we're really hung up on the Nina project. We are
Let's
now
move on from the Nina project.
We're now getting hung up on the Nina project because apparently we care about this episode more than I think either of us realized in last week's episode. Because I'm not being funny, this wasn't one of the titles that stuck out to me when we were looking through the Weaver. Like, Vecna's Curse. I understand the Nina project. Apparently that's the go-to one now.
Yeah. Weirdly though, the Nina project was one of the ones where a lot of people that sent us messages said they thought it was a fake name.
So did I.
Yeah.
Now, however,
we do think it's technically a fake name.
I don't know if it's a fake episode title though anymore.
Oh no, I don't think it's a fake episode title. Absolutely not. No, but it's potentially a fake name. So
many things to discuss. Apparently, will we make it to an hour-long podcast again?
Absolutely.
For editing reasons, let's hope not. Anyway, so before we get into apparently our new favorite episode, there are many places where you can catch us talking about things that are not the Nina project, and those places, they are Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible.com, and Google Podcasts. Changed the order this week. What a treat. At Hawkins Do You Copy, and then on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Hawkins Podcast, and then on Tumblr and YouTube at Hawkins Do You Copy. For those on Tumblr, we used the website today.
We did.
And for those of you, a fun tidbit about that little bit there, that took about 50 takes. So there was a question of the week, mini question of the week. And it was asking what you think the Nina project is. We kept it simple, and we will read those responses right now. A project to create a machine to combat the evil forces of the Upside Down. I didn't think of that.
That was not in my mind whatsoever. My brain did not go to any type of like machine. But then I guess that's kind of interesting because obviously we knew that the Russians were working on that giant machine. And
exactly.
I mean, I guess the gate and the Upside Down in itself is a project.
Yeah, because suppose like actually we know that what the Russians and apparently the people of California are building is a gate, or we presume that's what they're doing in California anyway. I'm just making a massive assumption. I don't have a clue. Some kind of gate to the Upside Down, but also we don't really know what its purpose is exactly. Does it do other things? Why are we doing this? So
yeah,
it could be. Who knows? That would be quite interesting, actually, the more I think about it. Yeah. Or it's a project to recreate Duplicate 11 or a more powerful version of her, which is interesting because that is literally what we discussing yesterday.
Yes, literally. Yeah, we
have start with that.
Yeah. So for those that missed it, on the 6th of November we had Stranger Things Day, and there's 3 episodes on this now that we have recorded, so I guess we can say that we essentially have a Stranger Things Day series. I mean, the whole of November has just been Stranger Things Day episodes. Maybe next week it'll be literally another episode on something to do with Stranger Things Day. But near the end of the evening on Stranger Things Day, they released a bunch of episode titles: Hellfire Club, Vecna's Curse, Monster and the Superhero, Dear Billy, Nina Project, The Dive, Massacre at Hawkins Lab, Papa, and The Piggy Bag. Last week, we decided to make a video talking about those episode titles. And like Emily said at the start of this episode, we got very hung up on the Nina Project because as we were recording, we started coming up with more and more theories about what the Nina Project is. But obviously that episode was about all the episode titles. But as the week
parts, the dive,
which we just didn't talk about.
we give a big apology to the dive. I think one mentioned. To be honest, I don't really have any opinions on the dive.
I don't know what it could be.
Only I'm presuming the clip where we see Steve underwater is from that episode. What dive? Maybe it's a dive into the mind.
Maybe. Hive mind.
Hive
Dive
mind,
mind.
dreamscapes. Maybe it's
Who
a dive
knows?
into that. Actually, you know what? No, I bet it is because of the placement of the things, the Nina Project, the dive, and
Dive.
then Massacre of Hawkins
Massacre at
Lab.
Hawkins Lab.
I bet that it is a thing of let's now figure out what this is. And the Massacre of Hawkins Lab is a flashbacky episode. So we're diving into Elle's mind to bring her powers back. That's my assumption.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, the Nina Project.
The Nina Project. So we were just talking and we were going through like the normal things of, is it someone called Nina? Who is Nina? Is it the lady in the heels that we see for a split second in the trailer? Was Nina a number? Is Nina the name of someone involved who invented one of these things? And then we realized Nina doesn't always have to be the name Nina. And niñas is Spanish for girl.
On some level here, we're getting into outlandish theory territory, but go with it because it could work. So Duolingo, the ever reliable, it still kind of apply. It still kind of implies that it means girl, but it does say girl, child, or daughter. If we focus on the middle one for a moment.
I will say, so niña is usually used for girl. Niños is boy, but also can be used as child. But go ahead. We can use Duolingo as well.
Duolingo told me it was the middle one. So I'm going with the green owl because who wouldn't? So who knows? And also, we know that Nina was used in terms of the song that was playing in the what I'm going to presume is the Hawkins Lab Massacre teaser now. So from the opera Nina, and the song was "When Will My Sweetheart Return to Me," or something along those lines. So there is a lot of Nina teasers here. So from these two little things, we have decided that possibly maybe the Nina Project is L.
The L Project. But they're not going to call it the L Project because obviously, for obvious reasons, that's really obvious. And also projects like this, scientific projects and stuff, they usually have code names anyway. Like it is, so Nina is spelled different to it how Nina is, so it's literally exactly the same, except the second N has a biglia, which is the little wiggly line, and I think I've just completely butchered that spelling. It's one of the words I'm currently learning Spanish, and it's one of the words that I've really struggled to say, but I think we kind of briefly touched upon this last week. They probably wouldn't put that line in a project name because they wouldn't want people to make the assumption that Nina.
Yeah, that's what we said, that generally you're not gonna think, you're not gonna think, oh, this is related to that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know what 80s America was like. Maybe I don't know how language teaching was in school at the time. That obviously here in the UK we usually have French as our main language. I don't really know what it was like in 80s America. I don't know if maybe Spanish was the main language taught in schools, if language teaching was a main it was a core school subject. I don't really know. But if we say that for a moment, say that's what it was, say that all of the US learned Spanish as their second language. If they see the Nina Project written as it is, you're going to start thinking, what actually is this about? Presuming that they somehow get hold of government property. Let's just think think outside that box. Remember, because if people
Yeah.
get hold of it, you're more likely to put an assumption to it. Where if you just have the Nina project, it could be
Yeah.
anything.
But even like, you never know kind of what things would happen. And I guess Brenner is working now when he's doing the stuff with Elle and in the stuff, but especially in the 80s, the MK Ultra program was illegal at that point. I mean, like, it should have always been illegal. Um, but MK Ultra had its kind of time where it was authorized by the government, and then I think by the start of the 70s it had been told to shut down and stop and wasn't allowed to be done. So
Let's say
obviously,
67. Summary. It's 67
yeah,
sticking in
I
my head
think
or something.
67 is when it started, and then I want to say that statewide by 71 it was gone. Well,
Hmm.
gone. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Please do not come for me, US government. From what I know, you were perfectly reasonable and shut all of your things down when you were told. However, in the fictional world of Stranger Things, Dr. Martin Brenner does not shut down his MK Ultra program well into the 80s. And we know that he's doing that. So he's probably not going to want to call it MK Ultra because he's not supposed to be doing that.
No.
So the Nina project, could mean anything. If anyone finds that, even like Hopper and stuff, like looking around, if he found a folder that just says the Nina project, Nina could be anything. It could be an acronym, it could be the name of someone. Like, you're not going to think it. Whereas if you see that it's written in a different language, then you're going to start to wonder about the translations and then what that could be and why it's being so secretive. And so I think it makes sense for them to just use Nina. And it could be Nina.
Of course, this idea, not to play bad cop here, does come with a few questions. For
Yes.
example, why are we using a Spanish word in a project title?
Yes.
That because as much as you want to have a code name, it's not going to necessarily be your first thing that comes into head. Just like,
No.
you know what girl actually is in Spanish? Like, you're not
Yeah.
not
Why
necessarily,
Spanish?
yeah, you're not necessarily going to do it.
As much as Niñas makes sense because it's also a name of Nina. We can maybe assume, and even based on the comics and stuff, that isn't just girls in the lab. There is boys, we can assume. So niños is boys and also like children, essentially. But to be honest, if you're talking about like boys and girls, you would refer to them as like el niños and la niñas. So it's kind of, you know how languages have like masculine and feminine terms. That is one of them. Like, we have niños and we have niñas, so I don't know why you would just use the one unless it is specifically, like you said, the green owl told you. If it is that they're using a translation based on that and they are specifically referring to L and it is like child, daughter, because
Hmm.
you would use niñas, like niña for daughter as well, as like a sort of loose translation.
Another theory, though, is that it is purely based off of the opera. So
Yeah.
it is technically another language, but the opera
Yeah.
is Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that are thinking while quoting an opera, as I said earlier, the song in the teaser where Hawkins' lab is completely massacred is from an opera called Nina. So it's Nina, or The Woman Crazed with Love. So a brief synopsis, according to the ever-reliable Wikipedia, is that Nina is in love, but her father favors another suitor. Nina believes that the person she loves has been killed and goes mad, forgetting aspects of the traumatic incident in a manner consistent with the diagnosis of psychogenic amnesia. She only regains her reason when the person she loves reappears unharmed, and her father finally allows her to marry who she wants to marry. So the Nina Project could be a code name for this. So in this kind of setting, Nina would be L. The father, so the Count Lindoro, would be Brenna. And we know that L has always been special to Brenna. This is something we've seen if we're counting Suspicious Minds as canon in Suspicious Minds, that it was always his aim. Right from the moment when he discovered that Terry was pregnant, it was a case of, I can now use this child, and she was going to be very, very special.
Well,
And
one of the big theories before we read Suspicious Minds, if we use Suspicious Minds as canon, was that he was actually Elle's dad. Like, biologically, that was like one of the biggest theories. Like, everyone thought that until we read Suspicious Minds and met Andy. Is it Andy? It is Andy.
Yeah, Andrew. Yeah, Andrew. Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
So it could still fit with that. Maybe Brenna is just a big fan of opera. It's his favorite 1786 opera. So
maybe it is. The thing is I think that when it does come to scientific things, like, it's never the name of what it actually is.
No,
like,
it
it's
never
not,
is.
you know.
So something like that, it could make sense then, to be honest. It does fit.
Yeah, it does. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if it did come from something else, especially when we've had like Latin episode titles, and we know that the piggyback is translated to lots of different things in lots of different languages. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of underlying thing there. So we had a look to see what the actual meaning of the name Nina is in just English, just in general. And what I find really interesting is when you Google this, and obviously this is just Google, there's lots of things on Google, but when you Google it, when you find the name Nina on a 9.5 out of 10 websites, like, of the time, it says in Spanish, this means little girl, and it constantly wants to tell you it means little girl. And I think that's interesting that that's like specifically mentioned within the name Nina, because it's not a name in Spanish. It's not someone's name, if that makes sense. Like, well,
Yeah,
it could
refer.
Yeah, it could be someone's name, but that spelling is to refer to someone. Essentially, like, if you named someone that in Spanish and spelt it the Spanish way, you would be, it's almost like literally naming someone in English daughter or like girl. Like, if you spelt it that way. So it's interesting that it comes up. But it does say that whilst also being a common nickname name in Spain, it also is very common and has roots in Russian.
Well,
which I think is quite interesting. I also think it's interesting that it's the name of a Babylonian goddess of the oceans, seeing as, the Nina Project is the episode before the dive, right?
Everyone's favorite episode, the dive.
The dive. And an Incan goddess of fire, which I think is just quite interesting. I think that, like, it obviously has some sort of meanings, and again, like I've said this in so many episodes, but I feel like the Duffer Brothers they don't just pick things. They don't just pick names like randomly. This is not, they wouldn't be naming like like a chapter titled the Nina Project and not have a meaning.
Unless we are giving them way too much credit.
Yeah, because I guess this is coming from the same people that literally named an episode The Lost Sister about a lost sister.
A lost sister.
But I'd like to think that maybe they're just being really extra for season 4, and that this actually means Nina, child, daughter, the L project.
Yeah, so I think what we can take from season 4 is that it's probably going to be quite an L heavy season.
Yeah.
And considering that 2 out of 4 teasers, I should say, they're not trailers, they're sneak peeks, have contained Elle
Yeah.
in some big focus kind of way. And obviously Hopper, but Hopper has a connection to Elle and he's in Russia. So, you know, he's doing whatever. So I'm really going to assume that we're going to get quite a bit of backstory with her. So I would, at this point, I feel like I'd be more surprised if the Nina project wasn't specific to her. And
It's just a girl called Nina. It's a new character called Nina.
They'll go, welcome in number 12. And it'll just or something like that. Because I think as well, if you got the massacre of the lab, I'm not taking comics out of canon here, or the 6 comics, taking them out of it, because to be honest, looking at the teams that they gave us still doesn't quite make sense, because 6 and 3 and all of that are a lot older, and I think there was like one older possibly looking boy that was sitting there. Everyone else, and also they kept their hair, which we didn't see within.
They did. They joined later, didn't they? Unless it literally was they joined after the massacre. But
see, it doesn't, because Elle had her hair though.
That's true.
Didn't she? So
yeah,
and that things don't quite line up or make complete sense. So I'm gonna take the comic characters out of canon for a moment. Obviously we do know if they were in it, we know that Francine dies anyway. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
But she does die anyway, so we're not going to be seeing her. But yeah, they're all dead, so to speak.
Oh my god, they did.
So, you know, it might be a thing that somehow Elle survived. There are a few theories online of how she survived. She is in a separate room, so maybe she literally just wasn't in the room at the time and it was a complete fluke that she survived. But I suppose with all the focus then on her, you know, let's just make, and to be honest, the project may have been about her anyway. And I think Suspicious Minds kind of tells that he wanted something special. Season 1 definitely tells that, because if the theories about number 1 appearing in season 4 are true, in my mind, would you not be focusing on number 1 unless you thought that they were dead? But if you had even an inkling that they were alive, surely they would be your focus rather than her.
Yeah, unless it literally is that she, like, it kept going until they got it right with Elle.
Because we do know, counting Suspicious Minds, that I think we said this last week, that there were other children used and they were deemed as not good enough, essentially, apart from Callie, who was taken. So, and I think as Terry's looking through the book, there are no names or anything attached with it. It's just simply, this is that's that child. No, not counting it. So we do know there were others, but obviously it's kind of hard to tell what we're seeing, what we're not seeing, especially since the rainbow room that's magically appeared in season 4 is very different to the rainbow room we saw in season 2. And we've spoken this before, maybe it's a budget thing, or people online have said maybe it is a completely different rainbow room. And I don't know, maybe it's something like that, but it is interesting. This is the issue with reintroducing numbers this late in the game. This is what happens, because I don't know. I know that backstory has probably been there from the very beginning, but sometimes it does feel a little bit like.
I think even with like Callie and stuff, it was sort of an issue, because there's no way Elle being as old as she was, she would have not remembered. It's weird, and then also like Callie remembers Elle only when Elle is like, "Hi, it's me." Like it, unless it literally is that Elle has repressed so much.
Which does make sense.
Which does make sense.
Would you not remember the massacre?
Yeah.
Unless it was literally that moment that kind of switched everything off for her, that she doesn't remember anything really before that. Because actually, if you think about all her memories that we see in season 1,
she has hair, and she doesn't have her hair.
It's simply, and
Yeah.
they're being triggered by things that she's watching. Doesn't really remember the Coca-Cola thing until she sees the advert on TV, until she sees a
The
cat.
cat.
She doesn't remember that. And even actually the moments in season 2 when she sees, does she see a squirrel and then or something, and then she remembers,
Yeah,
but then
she
we
does.
see little bits that happen there when she was on her own in the woods. So
Yeah. No,
I
that's
don't
true.
know.
I wonder if I mean, it makes sense because if it's such a trauma like that, it makes sense that you're gonna want to repress so
Mm,
much and well, not even want to repress. Like, it just makes sense that your brain would do that. And obviously, she's been put through so much, and she's like constantly attached to things and constantly having to do all of these different things. So it makes sense. But yeah, introducing them like Callie's age in regards to Elle's age has never made sense when it comes to like the flashbacks, and then also even the book, the fact that Terry can like sees the book before she's even given birth and Callie's in it, like the fact that Callie is in the lab before
mm,
Terry has even given birth, and then you see that flashback of Callie and Elle playing. It's like their ages are so different, like this is not accurate.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's odd as well because obviously when you're writing additional material like this is something that was said in comic canon as well. They're given essentially free reign and they just weren't allowed to touch number one.
Yeah.
I think that was, well, regards to the comics anyway, that's what they were told. So I would be interested to know how much Gwenda Bond was allowed to play around with stuff. And I think I want to say this one is considered a canon book, isn't it? I think it's been advertised as that.
Yes, it is.
So it's very interesting and
I think so.
I'd be intrigued. But
I
yeah, yeah.
am wondering if it is that they've had all these numbers before number 11 and they just weren't good enough.
Mm.
And this is all I'm going to say on the matter because try not try not to be spoilery. But wouldn't it be interesting if number one went wrong and
Mm.
turned into something else, something bigger, maybe a big bad that's been there the whole time? Just food for thought.
It is interesting you say this because Errol says in season 1 that she is the monster. And I think she's
Yeah.
called something like it by others, isn't she? Or there's some, she wouldn't just come out of nowhere with that one. I can't, it's been a
Yeah.
while since I've watched season 1. So I can't remember the exact context behind it. But it's interesting that that's a line that's played off as I'm the monster. I did this, I did that. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
presume she did open some kind of gate. The Cruel House teaser kind of plays around with that idea a little bit of what's gone on there.
Like what's in
Um,
Hawkins.
but it's interesting. That's a seed that's been planted.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Elle isn't the monster, or maybe she is some kind of monster. Who knows?
Perhaps.
Back to the Nina Project. If the Nina Project is about Elle, what does this mean for her then?
That the government are gonna just want her immediately. Like, she's always gonna be watched. Like, it is gonna be a fire starter situation where she's just constantly tried to be like hunted down, essentially, which ties into our idea that if she has her like Carrie moment in the roller rink, that's when they finally find her. Or Mike flying to California
Mm,
is when they finally find her, because why is this child, who is clearly always going to be under supervision because he housed Elle for a week in his basement,
mm.
why is he suddenly flying to California?
See, what's interesting about that though is why not do it during season 3?
Yeah.
Because to me, maybe it's that the government were on the side of let's just, have a bit of caution because we know that Owens had just given the birth certificate. We know that he is still in some kind of contact with Joyce and Hopper because Joyce can very easily call him up and be like, I need to speak to him. So we know there is some kind of relationship there, but why wait a year, or like over a year really, that season 2 ends? I know the snowball happens, but
It's like
I'm going to say
November.
November. I'm going to disregard the snowball for now and say that
Mhm.
November is when season 2 ends. So you've got November 1984 to November 1985. And on top of that, you've then got a few more months. So let's say spring break. Let's say spring break is April. Just for now, I know it varies from school district to school district, but let's go beginning of April.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you waiting that long? Unless it is a thing where Owen's little comment about give it another year or two and then it's fine has really come true, because he did tell Hopper she needs to stay inside for this much longer and then she'll be in clear. And he says that one more night in clear, the one night is fine. But we know that liberties were pushed a little bit in season 3. Actually, in regards to that, this is another little thing. I know he doesn't know that she is actually no.
I feel like
knows
I'm watching you just have a massive series of emotions. This is hilarious.
He knows that she is going out.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't know that she goes to the mall, but he knows that she is going out. So this whole comment of having one night, and then she stays in again, and that people can visit, but whatever, it's null and void.
Yeah, he also like leaves her for like an extended period of time, like so that he can go to Illinois.
Illinois, like the state of Illinois.
Did we just forget about the events of season 2?
What I was gonna say though is I wonder if it is they let her do things in Hawkins because they could keep an eye on Hawkins, and Hawkins is where the lab is, and that's all okay. And I wonder if the reason why they drove 44 hours to California was not because they just preferred to drive, but because they thought if we go on a plane, we will be tracked. And now, if we drive, maybe we won't be under as much surveillance, which is why it then takes a little bit longer. And it takes Mike being like, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to go on a plane and flying to California for them to be like, oh, where's he going?
I have another point on that, though. I have a point that disregards that. End of season 3, Will and Elle are going to visit for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
That's true.
They're visiting for Christmas.
That's
so
true.
I refuse to believe that Joyce Byers is going to drive them 44 hours just to go and stay for like a night.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's the only point that goes against that. But I do like the concept.
Yeah. Or someone else is now in charge.
Or Sam Owen isn't as good as we thought he was.
Don't, because I really don't totally trust him, but I really want him to be a good guy. And I just really don't like the idea that he's not.
No, I get you. I'd like to think that he's good, and I'm going to hang on to that until season 4 and inevitably proves me wrong. But unless it is that kind of thing where he's not a bad guy, if it's going to benefit him, why are you not going to do it? Like, you know, in season 2, in fairness, he does stand up to them a little bit when it always not great for Will. But they were quite happy to just sort of let the Mind Flayer take over Will, because there was nothing really they could do, and like he was lost on them at that point.
Not let Joyce take him to a proper hospital, which I know they wouldn't have been able to do anything in a proper hospital anyway. But
I wouldn't surprise if they have been tracked the entire time, though. I think
100%.
And it will be interesting if Brenner actually is Brenner rather than a memory in the puppet episode, I'm presuming, or in whatever episode. To be honest, he might appear in the dive. Who knows? Just whatever. It'll be interesting to know what happens there. Obviously, the groups are very split this time as well. Are we going to see them all back together again? And if they are back together, in what state are they all going to be back together? Because, to be honest, it seems like either side are kind of going to be going through it a little bit. The Hawkins side, I don't know what's going on. Max is going through some stuff. I don't even know if Lucas is friends with them anymore. I mean, he's in the little teaser, but I don't know. Lucas seems to be all cool into basketball now.
He is.
Considering that's how we were seeing him in his little picture.
It's so funny though. But I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, was Lucas originally gonna play basketball, or did the fandom collectively manifest Lucas playing basketball? Because it was such a like fanon, like headcanon thing. It was like one of those headcanons that the whole fandom just like, we don't know where it started, but suddenly the whole fandom was like, Lucas plays basketball in high school.
So I think Caleb plays basketball though, doesn't he? But then I'm also like, did the basketball start because of Lucas?
Lucas. What
did we?
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I don't really know. Yeah, when I actually saw him with the basketball, I was like, oh, he actually does play basketball. This isn't just like Sirius Black with his leather jacket fanon moment. This is like actual canon content. He plays basketball.
Yeah. In fairness, I think it came from the audition tapes, because in the Eddie audition tape, they suggest that one character that everyone has collectively assumed is Lucas. Was like, oh, he's at basketball practice or something like that. So I'm presuming it's come from there. But still, so we obviously don't know the state of anything in Hawkins. To us, we don't really know this. We do kind of know the state of what's going on in California to this point, because
drama,
they're getting shot at apparently. Which I don't think enough people are talking about that.
Jonathan is not just getting shot at as well either.
But like, they're going open fire at a group of teenagers. Like, how? Why is this happening? That's something in itself. Like, obviously, we're presuming it's because they want to find Elle. That's what I'm presuming. They want to find Elle, and then that's when they go on their little pizza truck ride, from what we can tell in the teasers. But like, what has happened to authorize that happening?
Like, to straight up shoot at them is pretty extreme. Because also, like, the government are never that obvious if you think about it,
and that's kind of really giving everything away. That obviously in season 1, what happened at the school was pretty obvious,
but no one else was around really. If you think about it, it was only people that knew what was going on that was around.
The caretakers are just walking the next day though, just to a complete state.
How on earth did Elle like climb out of the wall and the school not? No, anyway, that is not this episode. But yeah, no, to publicly in daylight, it looks like it's daylight, to shoot at the house is pretty, like, government don't do that. Do you know what I mean? Not when they're trying to sort of be covert about it.
Wacky theory to finish this little thing
project.
Wacky theory to finish this thing off. Something to consider as well, that we're all jumping on Elle. What if it is about number 1? That we are presuming once again that number 1 is appearing. It's interesting why it's not allowed to be touched. What is the reason it's allowed to be touched? Is it because number 1, as you said, is becoming a bit more corrupt, or is it because number 1 actually is a project in itself? This is a real reach, but you also have 011 and 001. Is there a connection with that as well? Is it a case of we're sort of adding numbers on rather than going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is it going 001, 011, 021, 031, and would it continue that way? Because it's all part of that collective project. Because it is interesting to me that everything else can be touched. You're allowed to touch any other number. You just can't touch number 1. And to me, that suggests that number 1 is something very special.
Yeah, me too. If it's just never touched in the show, I'll be really surprised.
Yeah. I do find it interesting. Obviously, I'm not saying it. Obviously, it's not typical to jump numbers that way, but I'm only thinking like in terms of code name for something. Like if you're doing a patch on something, it would be
Yeah.
so Animal Crossing patch, for example, for those players that has just come out. So that was 2.00.
Yeah.
That was changed to 2.001, and sometimes it'd be 2.1.1 and things like that. So is it working that way with it, or is it working jumping up the numbers, as we said? So maybe the collective Nina project is all the ones.
Yeah, it could be.
The thing as well that, because the thing is, I think it's probably going to be L, but L is also the really obvious choice.
Yes,
I think, for what the Nina project
100%.
is. I mean, to be honest, I haven't actually really seen a lot of people talking about it, but you know, your first assumption would be if it's a project to do with something, and then the layout of the episode, it's going to be something to do with Elle, especially as we said earlier, all the focus is going to be on Elle this season. Just mix it up a little bit. Mix it up, Duffer Brothers.
It could be. Also, interestingly, question to go along with that theory. When someone says number one to you, what is your initial response, boy or girl?
A boy.
Same. What if it's not?
Well, I think it is, but
What
it
if
would be
it's not?
interesting if it wasn't. Yeah. If it wasn't, it's Nina.
It's Nina. And in this episode of the Hawkins Do Coffee podcast, we solved who is Nina. Ryan and Shane need to get on our level because what is it, like an hour? We solved it.
I just think it'd be interesting if you are focusing, if number one is to do with the Nina project, I think number one is going to be focusing on something else in those episode titles, to be honest.
Me too.
It could be a general overview, but I'm going with the assumption that the Nina project is specifically the L project post Hawkins massacre.
Yeah, I think so
Although
too.
wildcard option, it's the code name for the Russian railroad building.
Imagine. That's what it is. Imagine that. We've just done
you know
this
what?
whole...
I bet it is now. You said earlier about it having Russian origin as a name. Oh, I'm going to be fuming.
No. If it has Russian origins and it's like girl and little girl, the doll.
Oh, no. Thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks for listening to this pointless episode of the Hawkins Do Coffee podcast.
Well, we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your comments. I feel like we had like a mad 2 minutes at the end there. Let us know your comments on whether you think it's number one related, whether you kind of agree with us, even though I don't know if we agree with us now, whether you think it's L related, or if you think it's the Russian doll that Joyce receives, because that Russia plot's gotta come in somewhere.
I bet the doll is called Nina.
Oh, you know what?
I bet it's got a name tag on it that's like Nina.
So to hear us talk more about these kinds of things, there are many places where you can hear us talk about these many kinds of things, and the episode go very similar to how this went. And those places are Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and audible.com. Remember, you can listen on an Alexa. How fun. And at Hawkins Do Copy, and then find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Hawkins Podcast, and on Tumblr and YouTube at Hawkins Do Copy.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Hawkins Do Copy podcast. Make sure you come back next week to hear us talk for an hour and a half about the doll that Joyce opens for a point of a second in the California teaser trailer. We will see you then. Over and out.